So from the committee side, we're all happy to report, to approve this report, to recommend it to the board for inclusion in the annual report. Thank you, members. We're now on item 7, which relates to the questionnaire that we normally do in terms of our JSE listings for our annual report, and the company secretary will again take us through this document.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is one of the meetings that the company secretary does get the spot of all the requirements from the regulatory and the compliance perspective, more specifically from a listed entity, Mr. Chair. The JSE listing requirements also require a compliance certificate to be completed annually by the compliance officer, and it designated the company secretary as myself to make sure that we have fulfilled the listing requirements. And I'm happy to, again, to report to the members that nothing should come to your attention as non-compliance or any breach, and therefore we also agreed with the internal auditors to actually look at the work that we've done and identify areas of non-compliance. So the SENS announcement were issued on time. When the directors had to trade on the market, it was notified publicly, as well as any trading by the audit committee members as members of the board, as well as the CEO. We also have gone through with the remuneration committee approving the remuneration of the non-executive directors, as well as the CEO and the executive of the company. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Company Secretary. Members, are we happy to recommend this report as well? Thank you. We now move to item 8 on the agenda. It relates to the litigation report. This item is for our noting, and the Company Secretary will also present this through to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite interesting to see that I've got to have to present the paper from my own colleagues. What I'd like to note, though, there are two issues that we've identified from a legal perspective that we have dispute. One is of an employee who has claimed an unfair dismissal. And depending on the court case, we believe that we have a very strong case. But you know, Mr. Chair, in terms of the court proceedings, you can never know until the judge makes the final decision. And the second one is a customer who also felt that he consumed one of our products, and we felt that there was a safety quality issue, and he sued the company for about 400,000. We again believe that that dispute would definitely win, because we've gone through our quality assessment process and we've tested the product again, and it has no indication of any safety issues that could cause any of our customers. However, the amounts that we're looking at are below 500,000, and therefore they are not going to have a material significant impact in terms of our financial statements.
Thank you. The meeting notes your report. Any questions or comments? Concerns? Thank you, members. We now move to item 9 on the agenda, which will be presented by the external auditors. And the first item is having a look at the audit summary memorandum for this past financial year, as well as the schedule of audit differences.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I will treat it with my final audit findings report for the year ended 31 August 2013. You've got a copy in your pack, so I will just highlight the main items. Firstly, the declaration of independence by the auditors. Mr. Chairman, I am declaring Nkonki's independence in conducting the audit. All members of the audit engagement team confirmed in writing that they are in compliance with Nkonki's independence policies with respect to the audit, and no exceptions were noted. Furthermore, we have not carried out any assignments, the nature and extent of which would impair our independence. Accordingly, we formally confirm to the audit committee now that Nkonki have been and continue to be independent of the group and its subsidiaries. Regarding the scope of the audit, no changes were made or proposed in the scope of our audit, apart from which is handled in the ASM document. On the feedback regarding significant reporting matters, the major risks that we identified related to property, plant and equipment, revenue, provisions, especially for warranties and bonuses and secure debtors. We did obtain sufficient, reliable and relevant information to satisfy ourselves to the accuracy of the information contained in the financial statements. The following significant reporting matters should, however, be brought to the meeting's attention. Firstly, research phase expenses were capitalized to internally generated assets and not recognized as an expense the way it should have been. This inaccuracy of 1.6 million rand was, however, adjusted by management. Borrowing costs that were not directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of the building were incorrectly capitalized. This amounted to about 200,000, and this was adjusted by management. Then furthermore, fair value movements of investment property was incorrectly disclosed in the financial statements under other comprehensive income instead of the profit and loss section. This inaccurate disclosure was corrected by management, and the copy of the financial statements reflect that. However, upon auditing the foreign exchange rates, gains and losses, it was discovered that the company used incorrect exchange rates. This difference in the rates amounted to an inaccuracy of about 300,000. This was not adjusted by management, and consequently, this is the only item on our overs and undersheet, but it is well below our materiality of 1.7 million rand, so we are satisfied with that. It is also important to mention that none of these are recurring issues from the prior period. As the CFO mentioned, significant developments that will be considered additionally during next year's audit relates to the investigation done by the CFO on IFRS 10, relating to a single control model and applying the new definition of control. I concur with the CFO's findings and report, and I've included a copy in my report as well. During next year's audit, we will be investigating all contracts of subsidiaries and JVs, etc., and we will consider the impact of it on the disclosure in next year's financial statements. The only outstanding item on the audit, and I've included a copy for your attention in the pack, is a draft management letter that needs to be signed before we can sign the audit report. On the going concern, we have done a review on the going concern assumptions by management. In addition, we have also made use of experts and specialists in this field to stress test these assumptions. We are satisfied with the assumptions used by management, and therefore nothing has come to our attention that would lead us to believe that the going concern assumption is not applicable. I am therefore, Mr. Chairman, pleased to announce that we are going to issue an unmodified audit report, which basically means that it's an unqualified audit report or a clean audit report. One last item that I want to handle is just the overruns on the audit fee. I am referring you to the schedule regarding the overruns on the audit budget. We have discussed the merits and the reasons of the overruns with management, and they have agreed to it. We therefore would like the audit committee to approve the overrun in addition to the initial audit fee. I would like to thank especially the CFO, which under difficult circumstances with the financial staff, in assisting us in completing the audit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you for that feedback. To the members, Jacques has presented 3 documents for consideration. Are there any questions on these documents?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. My first question is on the fees, the overruns. First of all, congratulations to management for the good results, especially to the CFO, considering that you had key vacancies at year end. Chair, I noticed that your average rates were quite high, and I'm just not sure whether while you were waiting, you used high-level staff. I just think that you could have used low-level staff while you were waiting for year end, while waiting for the information, and also for the review of certain financial statements. I think they used high-level staff members for that area, and that pushed your overruns.
No, I think the overruns are related to additional hours that we had to work, approximately 80 hours that we had to work, and also overtime hours that we had to work. That was done in concurrence with the CFO, and the review of the financial statements, we need high-level staff to do that. I think to overcome this problem in the future, I think it would be wise for management to make sure that, firstly, the financial manager's position are filled and as quickly as possible, and secondly, that over the year end, that all the vacancies in the financial department is filled.
Okay. And then during the interim, were there any issues that were picked up that could have been prevented at year end that could have resulted in the overruns?
No. During the interim audit, everything went smooth. It was unfortunate that the vacancies happened over year end.
Thank you.
Other members, any further questions?
Through you, Chair. When I looked on the audit summary, memoranda, and schedule of audit differences, I noticed that there was a review of the application controls. However, what was the conclusion thereof, or what were specifically the areas of concerns?
I will field that question to our IT audit partner, which handled that.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Member, for the question. I thought what I'll do is I'll just briefly describe the audit process that we follow in terms of an integrated IT audit approach. During the process of our review, we look at both manual controls as well as IT automated controls. That, in essence, gives us the control environment from an audit perspective. To facilitate the application control review, we do walkthroughs, we validate the completeness, accuracy, and validity of information. From an ITGC perspective, we look at the underlying core systems that that operates. So in this case, it's a SAP environment, and we look at the underlying core systems, for example, the operating system and the database. What we've identified from the application control review, Chair, that there were no significant findings. The only one finding we identified was in some of the work, the manual process is followed rather than the application side. So I think from a King 3 perspective is we're trying to get the ROI, the return on investment from IT systems, and we're encouraging management to utilize more of the system. The investment on the system is quite huge, and therefore we would encourage management to utilize more of the system as opposed to following manual controls. Thank you, Chair.
To our external auditors, I have one question. Could you please tell the committee to what extent have you placed reliance on the work of internal audit?
Chair, if I may, from my side, Chair, I think from the work that we've relied on, the work of internal audit did IT general controls, they did SAP basis review, as well as SAP authorizations review. As far as possible, from a combined assurance approach, we looked at all of their work and we placed reliance. That limited the kind of work we did from our side, but also hand over to Jacques to take through from the manual side as well.
Mr. Chairman, yes, we had meetings with the internal auditors. We went through a review process of their work. We found the internal auditors to be competent for their task, and we also did additional walkthrough procedures, and we found nothing to let us to believe that the internal controls are not effective for the business.
Thank you. Members, having looked at the audit report, having looked at the overruns on the audit fee and the reasons provided, are we happy to approve these overruns? Thank you, members. Moving on to item 9.3, we have to obviously also consider the findings of the audit report. We've had Jacques' presentation. We've got our checklist in front of us that on a high level looks at the items that they've identified that have concern. We've also looked at the independence during my pre-meetings. We've also looked at their scope. Are we happy that they've been independent, that they've been given assistance by management, and the audit opinion fairly reflects the financial reporting requirements of this company? Thank you, members. So we are satisfied with the audit opinion. We are now moving on to item 10, which is report back on the top 10 risks of the institution, which was due to be presented by the Chief Risk Officer. I have noted concerns in my previous meeting regarding the risk department as well as the Chief Risk Officer's performance. And I think we've noticed this perhaps the third meeting that the Chief Risk Officer has not attended, which is quite a concern for us. I think it's imperative that we have oversight of all the risk management practices, processes, and engagements within this company. It's part of our charter. We also have to see to what extent those are being mitigated, and it's not acceptable that the Chief Risk Officer is not present in these meetings to account back on that department's efforts. I'd like to propose a way forward. One way is we all have the document in front of us. If we could perhaps have questions that the company secretary will minute down, and these will be recorded and circulated to the Chief Risk Officer. We will then ask the Chief Risk Officer to respond in writing within 7 days. I will also set up an urgent meeting with the Chief Risk Officer to discuss the non-attendance as well as these questions, and also see if there are any serious issues that are inhibiting their ability to perform as a risk division. So I think at this stage, if there's any questions, can we please pose it to the company secretary for circulation to the Chief Risk Officer.
Chair, through you, I do have a question to submit to the Chief Risk Officer that the Secretary can forward. Could you please find out when is the testing of the business continuity plan due to begin, and when will we receive feedback on the process once it's done?
Thank you.
Any further questions? I think from my side, I'd like to have these following questions minuted and posed. Looking at the report, it is very high level. We'd like some more detail in the report. In particular, though, I'd like to know what's the status of our legal and regulatory compliance, and also are there any significant areas of concern? I think also we need to have a look at the Risk Management Committee and its functioning and its terms of reference to see if it is an effective committee, and perhaps to get a status update where the Risk Management Committee is in terms of delivering on its mandate and its key objectives that it set out for the year. So if there's no further questions, Company Secretary, can you please send those by close of business to the Chief Risk Officer, as well as setting up a meeting within the next 5 days to meet with the Chief Risk Officer and address these questions and concerns noted by the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm the request from the members. One is the testing of the BCP when it is due, and also in terms of requesting a more detailed report in terms of the risk profile that has been submitted to the members, and more specifically the status of the legal and regulatory compliance risks. And then lastly, the mandate of the Risk Management Committee, its terms of reference and its effectiveness and how it fulfilled its duty. Have I got all of them right? Thank you.
Thank you, members. We are now on item 11, which internal audit will be presenting their documents through to us. The first agenda item, 11.1, it's feedback regarding the progress against the approved internal audit plan.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the documents as read. I'll go through all my agenda items, so I'll be giving a highlight of all the items from 11.2 to 11.5. Just starting off with the first document on our progress against the internal audit plan. Chair, as you can see, this is more an external audit meeting. We have done our work, and our work is substantially complete. We're actually waiting to start the next year of our plan. So this was just a report back on all the areas we could have completed in the past, in the 2012 and 2013 plan. Just moving on to the next document, Chair, just a report back on the issues that we raised and the current status of those findings. There's just 3 high-risk items. Of those, 2 have not been addressed. Chair, I'm not happy with the performance of the CRO as well. And I think it's evident on that one finding we have, which is high risk, where we have had pushback, I think, for almost a year now on the policy around, on just getting the documentation around the risk management policy, the strategy, and the framework documented appropriately. We have had numerous discussions with the CRO. He keeps making empty promises, and I think I'm just highlighting it to the members to please take more stern action against the CRO. Chair, on the other issues, they've been partially addressed, and I'm happy with how management has actually addressed those issues. There's one issue that still is to be addressed around the employee files. We just highlight it as a high risk because obviously compliance with laws and regulations needs to be adhered to. So it hasn't been addressed, but I think with us having the new compliance officer on board, it will be addressed going forward. And just moving on to the last document, or second last document on my presentation, Chair. We designed our procedures for giving our opinion on internal control environment to give a positive assurance. In the initial pack, I'd given a negative assurance, but Chair, through your wisdom, which you shared with me in the pre-meeting, I've since gone to my risk department, and I'm happy to say for this firm, for the first time, we're issuing a positive assurance. So that paragraph under the conclusion, I have changed it, and it now reads, other than for the observations recorded throughout the year, and based on our scope and approach described above, we conclude that the system of internal control for Audit Committee Conference Limited is effective. Chair, I think we have all the supporting information to support that conclusion. And we have circulated this opinion to the members electronically before this meeting. And then just looking at the last document, Chair, which talks to my audit budget. There's been savings in certain areas of the audit around the quarterly performance review. There's been also certain areas where we have exceeded our budget and certain areas where we couldn't perform our work. But Chair, I think generally we did address all the high-risk areas with our execution of the plan for 2012-2013. I'll take any questions from the audit committee members.
Thank you, Brian. I see you've run pretty quickly through your 5 documents at different levels. Members, in posing your questions, I'd like you just to refer to your document that internal audit has presented. Are there any questions on the first document, the progress that internal audit has made against its audit plan?